into the workshop. Welcome to the Festival of Road Safety and this introduction to road safety delivery, which is a course for 2020. Brief introduction, I'm Alan Kennedy, Executive Director of Road Safety GB. For those who don't know me, I've been involved in road safety delivery at almost all levels since 1987, when I began as a motorcycle instructor and test examiner. And since then, I've delivered road safety education and training and presented to all age groups, most road user groups, and in various settings, not only in the UK, but also overseas. In the 30 odd years that I've been in road safety, I've worked for 2 local authorities. My last one was I was manager at Durham, where I live, and I've been working for Road Safety GB for the last 6 years. I have a teacher training certificate, and I'm a tutor in the Road Safety GB Academy, and I deliver a number of key courses. So today I'm going to discuss the new course with you and the reason behind the development of the course and its content. And when I was asked to do this, I felt that an hour plus was probably far too long to simply describe a course. So I suggested that I pick out one aspect of the course as a learning opportunity for participants. And this learning opportunity will form the large part of today's session. So after my description of the course, I'll deliver a session on the mind. Why this session? Why the mind? Well, I'm preparing to retire in around 18 months' time, possibly. It might be a little bit longer than that. But in recent years, I've pondered on what I can do in my retirement. So I put together a plan, and I based it on all of the knowledge that I've gained over the years in my job around behaviour and psychology and some other personal interests that I have. So I trained as a clinical hypnotherapist, and I qualified about 2 years ago, and I now work with people on evenings and weekends to help them with things like trauma, with guilt, pain, emotional and physical pain, anxiety, phobias, habits, etc., etc. I'm sure you know the picture, but I'm constantly amazed at the power of the mind, and I've got a deep interest in it. So much so that over the last 2 years, I've tested the mind session in 1 or 2 of our courses as a precursor to the sections on brain development. And the feedback was definitely that the mind session was extremely interesting to most people. They seem to have got a lot out of that. So it's now kind of embedded in this course, Introduction to Road Safety, but it's also now in the foundation course. Now on the courses, there's sufficient in there for practitioners to get a reasonably good understanding of how the mind works, especially in relation to children. But today's session will be far more in depth, and I hope it'll generate much thought. And at the end of this session, I'll pose 3 or 4 questions, and obviously I'll take any questions that you have. And I hope you find it all interesting and useful. So just moving on to the course itself. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way here. So why did we develop the course, and who's it aimed at? Well, about 2 years ago, here in Durham, the road safety team asked me if I could develop a course aimed at their entry-level practitioners, people like pedestrian trainers, cycle instructors, and other part-time workers who would deliver road safety on behalf of Durham County Council. So I developed that course. Unfortunately, it didn't get off the ground at that stage. However, I talked about it a lot at regional group meetings, and that's really got a lot of interest going. So last year at AGM, we announced that we were going to develop this course fully, and we needed to pilot it. And our friends in Cornwall, Paula Wellings, asked if we could pilot it in Cornwall. As you can imagine, that was fabulous offer, and I live in Durham, and it was a pretty long trip on the train, 10 hours each way on the train to do a pilot course, but thoroughly enjoyed it. We got a lot from that pilot course. We worked with the Cornwall Fire Service, and then a few months later, we piloted again with the West Midlands Fire Service. And based on those two pilot courses, we were then able to put together a pretty efficient and satisfactory course as an introduction to road safety delivery. So it's been initially designed to give practitioners who are new to road safety delivery the knowledge, skills, and confidence to be able to deliver simple but effective road safety interventions. Now, that was the intention for new road safety people. However, on some of the live courses that we've already run, we've had practitioners who've been in the job 20, 25, 30 years, and they also got a lot from it. In particular, the section on the mind. So the course actually, it's aimed at anybody who wants to learn something more. It also provides students with a greater understanding of the relationship between government, partner organisations and the public, and how that relates to road safety programmes and delivery in the UK. So as I'm going through the course programme and content, some of you might think, well, you know, this is fairly easy stuff, but it isn't for somebody who's brand new. For example, on our first live course, we had a young guy from Gloucester. He'd only been in the job 2 weeks, and he found all of it really, really interesting. He just didn't have much of a clue about how it all worked. So on that basis, let's move on. So the course program is very straightforward, and it's in a logical order. There's the welcome when people arrive, who you are, who are you, you know, the icebreaker, and a self-affirmation exercise. And for those who may not know what a self-affirmation exercise is, it's very simply a small exercise to get people to think of something that makes them feel really good. And there's lots of research which says that if people feel good at the beginning of a learning experience, they're more likely to take notice, to absorb the information, and to be happy to be there. And that's really important when we're delivering road safety education. For those who've been on our courses before, you'll know that that's what we do. We like people to feel good about the experience from the start. We set out the course aims and objectives, which I'll talk through those in a moment. And then the road safety education structure from the point of view of Road Safety GB, where we sit in the road safety world. And then onto an understanding of the casualty problem. And we talk about where does the data come from and what is our role. Once we know what the problem is, what is our role and what is it that we're trying to achieve as a road safety professional. And then on to understanding human behavior. And it's in this part of the course that we talk about why do people do the things they do, and the mind, conscious and subconscious mind, and mind programming. And that's the bit that I'm going to deliver once I've gone through this section about the course. After lunch, we go into teaching approaches. So now we know what the problem is, and we've got some idea about why people do what they do. How do we change that? And what we do, we cover two approaches, which I've called point and tell and discussion and debate. If you've been on one of our courses before, you'll know that that's the behaviourist and the constructivist approach to learning. And we give examples of both those approaches in this section. And then we go on to learning styles and memory function, VARC, learning styles, and a reasonably in-depth section on short versus long-term memory. And that's really important in terms of learning, so we don't filter things out, and I'll explain that in a moment. And then on to basic teaching skills, understanding levels of learning. So from a very basic memory level up to the level of being able to apply knowledge. And a section on questioning techniques, evaluating learning to make sure that students have some idea how to do some basic evaluation, so that you know at the end of a session that your students or your public have gone away and they do actually understand what you've taught them. Little piece on ethics, and then we talk about the practical activity. Now, this course deliberately doesn't have an assignment. We do have on most, in fact, yes, all of our other courses have assignments. We thought for this one, being an introduction, it might be better to do a practical activity that they can be assessed on. And what happens is, after the course, 2 to 3 days later, students come back to do a short 5 to 10 minute presentation. Experience shows that that normally runs into 15, sometimes 20 minutes, but who cares? What we're after is to make sure that our students can come back and can deliver a good presentation, even though it's basic, so that we understand that they have the confidence and they have the skills to do that. Okay, so the course aims in structure to have a greater understanding of road safety education in the UK, to understand the structure and relationship between government, the key players and road users, gain an overview of casualty data collection and analysis and the potential issues, be able to identify and understand the purpose of a road safety practitioner. Now, that's really important if you're new to the job, because you quickly find out that we're not just here to teach people, we're not just here to reduce casualty figures. We've got lots of other roles that we need to apply. To gain an insight into human behavior and why people do what they do, because if we don't understand human behavior and why people act in certain ways, how can we change that behavior? And then on to learning basic teaching methods, questioning and feedback techniques, and to gain increased confidence in delivering road safety interventions. Course aims and structure. Obviously, these slides are all animated in the presentation, but this is just the structure that I've set out for this course in particular, because it is linked to the government, and we explain what the government's role is in road safety education, which department it sits with, the links between government and road safety GB, how we work together in a common goal, and what Road Safety GB's role is in supporting local highway authority road safety teams, the emergency services, and others that deliver road safety to the public. What our role is in educating, training, and upskilling those professions so that they in turn can deliver high quality road safety education and training to the public. And we do talk about other training providers, and we name some of them like TRL, such as Brake, ROSPA. Obviously, we want to be fair to everyone, but clearly we have a business to run, and I like to promote what Road Safety GB does. Clearly, we can't do everything, and those other training providers do things that probably we don't. So we need to fill gaps in training, in the training structure. The safe systems approach is something actually that I've just introduced because of some feedback I got recently. Thought it would be a good idea to actually talk about the safe systems approach, and this didn't really come up in the pilot schemes, but it is in there now, and it will be a brief overview of safe systems and the reasoning why we need to look at road safety from a holistic point of view. So it's not just about educating the public, it's not just about helping people to form new attitudes and beliefs, it's also about safe vehicles, safe roads, safe speeds, and that will be included in courses from now on. And so on to understand what the problem is. So we talk about casualty statistics, who collects them, where do we get the information from? There are some of the examples there, and we have discussion. We have little workshop groups to discuss where all this information comes from and what some of the limitations are. For example, really difficult in some areas to get crash data or injury data from the NHS, from hospital departments, from health and safety executive, and typically insurers, you would need to pay for that. So we talk around all of the pros and cons of the collection and analysis of data, but more importantly, we talk about the underlying story, how we can get a better picture of what actually goes on rather than just looking at numbers. So we talk about what happens with the data. Is it reliable? What do the numbers tell us? and how we can get better evidence. But again, we are talking about what is it we're trying to achieve. Once we've got these numbers and we've done that digging around to find out what the real problem is, what the behaviors are that we need to change, then we can start to talk about what is it that we're really trying to achieve as a road safety practitioner, and what is our role in this. And then we go on to understanding human behavior. We know what the problem is. Now we need to understand, why do people do those things? And I'm not going to cover this now, because I'm going to cover the mind in just a few moments once I've got through this part of the presentation. After lunch, we go into teaching methods. The first one is I've called point and tell, which is a behaviourist approach, which is all about drill, follow a process. I won't cover this too much, but what I do is I give a demonstration of point and tell using composition in photography as an example. And that gives a clear demonstration of that particular way of teaching. It's got pros and cons like every other method. And then we cover discussion and debate, which is the constructivist approach, where we know that learners will have previous knowledge. They will have their own ideas, and how that knowledge can be shared within groups. And the trainer, the practitioner, is actually a facilitator who supports the learning. Really, really effective in certain methods of delivery. But again, pros and cons, and it can be used in different parts of our work. It doesn't fit every scenario. Neither does the point and tell method. But a combination of both is usually the normal method. So we go through these again, giving demonstrations of how these work. And then on to learning styles, memory function, really important. I thought something like VARC, visual, auditory, read, write, and kinesthetic, was something that everybody knew about. And I'm quite surprised that many people haven't heard of this, particularly people who are new to teaching. But this session is really about the necessity to have a multi-sensory approach to teaching, to road safety delivery, so that we can ensure that we can use all of the senses to get that learning moving and people actually absorbing it. So we go through a whole session around VARC, the multi-sensory approach to teaching. And then on to memory, which is really, really important, and it links very closely to the mind, subconscious mind, which I'll talk about soon. And we talk around the sensory inputs, how our senses have a memory, how what we learn, what we see, what we hear, what we smell goes into the sensory memory, through to the short-term memory, which is actually a filter. And this is really, really important part of the course, because it's at this point where our skill as a road safety practitioner comes in. We have to make whatever it is we're teaching, we have to make it memorable. It has to stick, because the short-term memory will only retain about 7 pieces of information, and anything that is not significant to the learner, is not of any interest, is boring, or whatever you want to call it, will simply be filtered out. What we propose is that everything that we teach needs to go into long-term memory. It's important. Safety is really important to these people. So we have to make it interesting and something that will bypass the filter and remain in the long-term memory. So it has to be significant, memorable, and it has to have resonance with the student. And then onto some basic teaching skills. Now, this course is not a teacher training program by any stretch of the imagination. This is a very short course that will give new people to the job some basic skills, effective skills that will help them start to deliver road safety. So we go through, know your subject. Obviously, we wouldn't expect anybody to go into a session not knowing what they're talking about. And we talk about first impressions. The need to start positively with a self-affirmation exercise and remain positive throughout. And I know I'm flying through this at the moment, but obviously on the course, we talk about this in far more depth than I am now. How to set out really effective aims and objectives that are linked to basic evaluation. And then we talk about body language and verbal language also. The section on questioning is always very interesting to the students. Here I've only listed 4, open and close, probing and leading. On the course we talk about another 4 or 6, I can't remember now, but they do get a handout which is full of useful information about different types of questioning. Again, really important if we need to know, if we're trying to find out if our students are actually absorbing what we are teaching. And the feedback loop. You may have seen this if you've attended other courses. This is a simple model of how we can get feedback from students. We give them feedback, they give us feedback. We can determine what level of performance they're at, and we can fill any gaps in any knowledge, and then we can raise that level of performance, and then we go through the loop again. Again, on the course, we talk about this in reasonable depth. And I give a short demonstration on how to use the constructivist approach with a group of young drivers, just using a flip chart and a pen. The point of this is that you don't need to have lots of fantastic equipment. You don't need PowerPoint. You don't need anything, just a flip chart. And now that we're delivering online, we can use mind maps online as well as flip charts. So you can do this very same thing online. And this model can be used for drivers, pedestrians, cyclists. What makes a good cyclist? It's a really good tool to use in the discussion and debate approach to education. And once we've gone through this with students, they really start to get the idea of how we can start to get into the minds of young drivers, into the minds of pedestrians, cyclists, or passengers. And at the end of the day, we talk about the practical activity. And as I said at the beginning, we don't have a written assignment for this, but we do ask people to come back and give a 5 to 10 minute presentation to deal with one of the following: the benefits of wearing a seatbelt, the problems with alcohol and driving, how drugs affect driving ability, the effect of speed on car control, dealing with peer pressure, or any other topic of their choice. Now, the reason why I've put that in is because, in particular with brand new people to the job, sometimes they may not know enough about alcohol and driving or drugs, the effect of speed on car control. Let's face it, they are just learning. So I give them the opportunity to come and talk about any other topic. And on the pilot course in Cornwall, one of the fire officers gave a talk on how to apply to appear on a television program, and it was Bargain Hunt. He really loved Bargain Hunt, and he's gone through the process of applying for the program, and he was just waiting for, I believe he was waiting for a date to actually appear. And it was really, really interesting, and it gave him something that he was confident in, and he delivered a really good session on that. So that's the reason. Any other topic that they're comfortable with. So they have to assume that they've already completed a self-affirmation exercise. And we ask them to think about their teaching style, their teaching approach, the use of appropriate questioning, and to get feedback from the students. Now, all the other students on the course will be in on this session, so everyone can see everyone's presentation. And so there's opportunities there to check that the other students are learning, to check understanding and get feedback. And then they can fill any further gaps in the knowledge. And of course, we want people to be positive throughout. And they come back 2 to 3 days later following the course. It's all planned into the program to do their presentations. Feedback on the course so far has been excellent. I've been pleasantly surprised by the comments, and it appears that almost everybody has really got a lot out of the course, in particular the session on the mind. I'm happy to take any questions at this point on the course. This is just a a summary of what we go through on the course. What is this? We go through the structure, who is involved, what is the problem, a basic understanding of behaviour, knowing what the behaviours are, how to begin to deliver effective learning, then how to check what is being delivered. Okay, does anyone have any questions on the course so far? Ed, maybe you can help me manage this.
Hi, Alan. Yeah, there's a couple of ways in which people can ask questions. There's the chat function at the bottom,
Yeah.
if they want to type it, or they have the ability to unmute themselves and they can fire their question away.
Right. So we'll just wait 5-10 seconds if anybody wants to ask any questions so far. No. Okay, we shall move on then. Obviously, after this workshop, you can email me or call me and ask any questions that you want. If you don't want to ask them today, I'm very happy to answer any questions that you have. So let's move on to the learning opportunity for everybody. As I said before, this section is far more in depth than what we can do on the course. The course is only one day, so we have to cover so many other things that the mind is just one part of it. But it does give students a reasonable understanding of how the mind works and some of the issues it might have when we're dealing particularly with children. Today, you're going to get a lot more than that. So, mind programming, a brief history. I'll just fly through this for you. I won't bore you with it. Just a few key people involved or have been involved in hypnosis and psychiatry, psychology. Franz Mesmer, he was a dentist back in those days. He was late for getting back to his surgery one day, and when he got there, he noticed one of his patients was waiting in the waiting room, and he was staring at an oil lamp on the wall, and he was fixated on it, and he was in a world of his own. And Franz Mesmer looked at that and took it further and further, and that's where the word mesmerize comes from. So his patient was mesmerized by this flame. There's a lot more about that, which I can't go into now. But James Braid, later on, he found that he could use hypnosis. He could get someone into a state of hypnosis by using a watch, and you've all seen that, you know, on television, the swinging watch. That is actually a technique. It's not just something that you see on television. That he could get people into hypnosis using those kind of techniques. And James Esdale, he used hypnosis to numb pain, and he did hundreds and hundreds of operations on people without anesthetic. And in those days, anesthetic was, you know, very new, and he used the power of hypnosis to get people to be able to numb certain areas of the body. They weren't unconscious, they were wide awake, but they could numb those areas and not feel any pain. And there are videos on YouTube that you can look at, recent videos of a hypnotist who had a hernia operation without any anesthetic at all, and he was absolutely fine, just using the power of the mind. And Emil Coué, who developed the idea of placebos. And then Sigmund Freud, who is basically most people think the father of psychology and psychiatry, who tried hypnosis but actually wasn't very good at it. So he gave up on hypnosis, but he proposed that we all have two minds, that we have a conscious and a subconscious mind. And at that time, when he proposed that, his contemporaries all laughed at him and thought, you know, how can you have two minds? It's impossible. We've all got one mind. But, you know, I'm sure we all know now that in the psychiatric world, psychology world, we do accept that there are two parts to the mind, the conscious and subconscious. And finally, Milton Erickson, who only died in 1980, he was stricken as a child with polio, and he wasn't able to walk, he wasn't able to stand up. And as he grew older, he studied hypnosis, and while he was in hospital, he looked at other behaviors, he looked at how people behaved, and he developed self-hypnosis, and through self-hypnosis he actually helped himself to get out up on his feet, and he was actually able to run after a few years of practicing self-hypnosis. The school that I attended to get my qualification, the owner of that school was a stage hypnotist many years ago, and he did that part-time, but his profession was he was a civil engineer, and he had an accident and badly injured his right arm. So much so that his arm was completely useless. He couldn't move it at all. He couldn't move his fingers, and it just used to hang by his side, and it used to get in his way. And he was considering actually having it amputated to make life easier. But his father said to him, why, if you can get people to do all these different things, why can't you work on your own mind and do something with your arm? And he took that on board, and it took him a number of years, but now he's got 90% movement in his arm. He can use it almost normally, and it's not a hindrance anymore. So the power of the mind once again. So through that training I've had, I'm completely convinced, and some of the people that I've treated as well left me with just a great sense of achievement and wonderment at how this can work, and it's absolutely fabulous. So let's go to some basic stuff then. Brain waves. There are 5 levels of brainwave, and this is really important if we want to understand how children think in particular. So if you look at the most active brainwaves, which are called gamma, and they operate on a cycle of 40 plus hertz, 40 plus hertz cycles. That's when we're wide awake, very alert, conscious, and we're doing higher processing tasks. I think I might be running at 40 plus at the moment. Certainly when people are stressed and they're very busy, you'll be running at 40 plus. And then as the brain calms down a bit into beta, 12 to 40 hertz, that's awake general consciousness. And as it relaxes even more, down to 8 to 12 hertz, that's when we become really relaxed, calm, and it's an area between conscious and subconscious. Then we get down to theta waves, which are 4 to 8 hertz, and this is when we're in deep relaxation, and that's the range that involves daydreaming and sleep. So we can go in and out of daydreaming and sleep, and that's we do this twice a day naturally, when we're waking in the morning, when we're going to sleep at night, and it's that period when we're not quite sure if we're awake or asleep, that daydream kind of state that we get into. And then right the way down to up to 4 hertz, and this is the slowest recorded brainwaves, found most often in infants and very young children. Now, why is all this really important? Okay, so if we look at that bottom, that slowest brainwave, so that is what our brainwaves will operate at from birth. And as we get older, up to about the age of 6, our brainwave activity increases. And so we go through that theta stage up to alpha, 8 to 12 hertz, where when we're around about the age of 6, it could be 5, it could be 7, it's an average age. And then as we get older, still up to the age of 12, where our brain activity starts to go up to 12 to 40. Of course, brainwave activity alters right throughout the day. So when we go to sleep, it'll relax down to 4, 6, 8, something like that. Maybe even less than 4. And when we're very busy, it'll go up to 40, 40 plus. As we become adults, brainwave activity can increase right at 40, no problem. Scientists and psychologists now believe that there are many people who are in their 30s or even 40s who operate around that alpha stage, 8 to 12, most of the day. Daydreamers, people who can't concentrate or focus on anything. I call them daydreamers. And so, there may be some issues for adults as well. Now, what another important factor here is this, that, there it is. So at around about the age of 8 years, this is when a child's critical mind starts to emerge. So before the age of 8, if you look at the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that children are in a subconscious state. Certainly when they're very young, when they're infants going through the ages of 2, 3, 4, 5, and when they get to about the age of 6, a little bit of consciousness starts to emerge, and they may start to develop a critical mind at around about the age of 8. And this is really important. Above that, those brain waves above that, beta and gamma, are all conscious mind, where we're thinking about things consciously. So I want you to kind of remember, try and remember these important factors as we go through the rest of the workshop. So if we look at the conscious mind itself, and I use this diagram to try and explain conscious mind. If you can imagine it, or you can realize this iceberg on the screen, the top bit sticking out of the water, it's estimated that the conscious mind represents around 10 to 15% of the whole mind. And that's the bit above the sea level, controlled by the left side of the brain, and it applies logic. It always analyzes and criticizes. Now we're all in conscious mind at the moment, unless you've fallen asleep because you're bored. I hope nobody has. I'll assume everybody is awake and you're applying logic. And at this moment, you'll be analyzing everything I say, and you may not know this, but you will be criticizing as well. You'll be thinking, not sure about that. You'll be scratching your head and thinking about things. It's what those who you know Ian Edwards, it's what he and I call light bulb moments, when you start to think and scratch your head. It manages the short-term memories. Its language is verbal. This is where our sense of humor is, and it acts as a guard to the subconscious. So if someone is wide awake and alert, as we all are, I wouldn't be able to access the subconscious as a hypnotherapist, because the conscious mind is very awake and it won't allow it, because everybody's on their guard. So what I would need to do is to get somebody down to brainwave activity level of theta, that almost subconscious state, where we are drifting in between daydreaming and sleep. And it's at that point where therapists can access the subconscious mind. That's just for interest, really. And it can also conflict with the subconscious. The subconscious mind, estimated that the subconscious represents around 80 to 85% of the whole mind. This is the bit below the water. And this is our creative side. It's controlled by the right side of the brain. Now, these next bullet points are in bold for a reason, because I'm going to raise these later in the workshop. The subconscious mind cannot analyze or criticize at all. It's basically like a computer hard drive. It records everything, and we can put programs in. We can also take programs out. It takes every piece of information literally. Whatever you tell it, it takes it literally. It cannot distinguish between pretend and real. It has no sense of humor. The sense of humor doesn't lie there. Its language is imagination, it's visual, it's creativity. And its main function is to protect the owner. And I'll talk a little bit more about how it protects the owner. And it runs all programs that it considers protective. So it provides life support. Never forgets. And I talked about memory earlier. So the subconscious mind never forgets anything. Everything that we do, every second of our life, is stored in the subconscious mind. It is a huge, huge memory bank. And I can't remember now, say, June the 9th, 1987, driving through Newcastle when I overtook a cyclist on a particular street. That is just something that's insignificant, no need to remember it, but actually the subconscious mind does remember it. The reason why you can't remember it is because it's just not significant. Other things in the memory are things that the subconscious mind covers up. It hides them from you because it may be traumatic. So you might have had a traumatic event early in your life, and the subconscious just hides it. All those things can be uncovered with certain techniques. It lives in the now with no sense of time and provides life support, as I said on the previous slide. So how does it provide life support? Well, when we're born with primary programs. They're already built in. We have programs in there to regulate our blood pressure, heart rate, breathing rate, body temperature, hunger and satiety, and it runs all the programs that it considers protective. So let's just go back to breathing rate. So the program in there, it's a protective program. It tells the body to breathe. It tells the lungs to go in and out, breathe. And that works obviously in conjunction with the heart and blood pressure. Now, let's say as an adult, you go ice skating on a frozen lake, and that frozen lake breaks and you go into the water and you're swept away from that hole and you can't find your way out. The conscious mind says, hold your breath, because that's what you do. You hold your breath because you don't want to drown. But there comes a point when the body runs out of oxygen. And then what happens? The subconscious mind kicks in and says, wait a minute, guys, I've got to run a program here. I'm designed to make you breathe. And so the very last breath you take is a breath, lungs full of water, because the subconscious mind is simply a hard drive which has a program which says breathe, and it overrides the conscious mind and you take a breath. Hunger and satiety, where we are born with a program that says eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And this is why infants, when they're being fed bottle, you know, they'll cry, they'll scream because they're hungry, and mother or father feeds the baby, and then at some point the baby will stop feeding and it'll turn its head away, it'll even spit the milk out. And that's not because it doesn't like it, it's because the subconscious mind says at that point, you have enough food in you now to live. You have enough food in you to be healthy. You don't need any more. Now, this is one program that gets overridden. And I'm going to talk about that in a couple of slides' time. So all these programs are protective and they are built in, and some of them can actually be changed. Okay, so let's look at a child's subconscious mind. I want to talk about this in particular. So when a child is born, they have no logic, no reason, or inhibitory processes. There is nothing in there that will analyze anything. The only fears are the fears of falling and loud noises. And to be honest, I'm not really sure how that was discovered. But apart from those programs, primary programs, there are only two fears. All other fears and behaviors, which we might want to call programs, are learned through identification and association. So I apologize if that spider that appeared on the screen has scared anyone who has a fear of spiders. You might look at that image and start thinking, oh my God, I don't like spiders. I want to talk a little bit about wasps. My great niece, who is nearly 10, she has a real morbid fear of wasps. As soon as a wasp appears or she hears a buzz, she's gone. She screams the place down and she runs. And, you know, I ask her, so have you been stung by a wasp before? No. Have you been attacked by a wasp? No. Has a wasp ever landed on you? Yeah. And did it hurt you? No. So why are you frightened of wasps? I don't know. The reason why she's frightened of wasps is because her mother is terrified of wasps. So from being very young, my great niece has learned that when a wasp appears, you scream and you run away and you are terrified. So she has learned that from her mother. So what she does when she sees a wasp, she identifies it, she associates it with fear. And the fear is then real. She really feels that terrible fear. The great thing is about learned programs like these, not just fears, you know, phobias, any other kind of program, is that they can be unlearned. Thankfully, and this is what, you know, I've been kind of trained to do. So a child's critical mind, as I said previously, only develops from around the age of about 8 years old. And before then, everything that they see, everything that they hear, feel, goes directly into the subconscious mind without analysis. And it's accepted as fact because there is no conscious mind there to critically analyze or criticize any information that goes in. So whatever goes into that subconscious mind is fact. So in the eyes of the child, you as a parent or as a road safety practitioner, whatever, in their eyes, you are literally everything because they are in the programmable state, the theta brainwave level of 4 to 8 hertz all of the time. So whatever you tell them, their brain will record it as true. And then all those behaviors become automatic. There are other things that become automatic, so things that we are trained to do, such as to feed ourselves, to learn a language, to walk, to run, to ride a bike. They all drive a car when we become older. Those are things that we learn and become automatic in the subconscious. But you can see how fears can also become automatic, but also wrong programming. And we'll talk about that next. So faulty, wrong programming, negative program, whatever you want to call it. Let's go back to those bullet points I mentioned earlier. So a child's subconscious mind takes every piece of information literally. Let's look at that. So if we constantly say to children, if you don't get good grades at school, you will never get a good job. Now, I just need to move something on my screen. Just give me 1 second. Okay. What happens is the subconscious mind doesn't take all of that statement. It takes a bit. It takes only part of it. And what the subconscious mind will take from that statement is the last part. And it will say, I will never get a good job. So the subconscious mind translates things and it takes things in the literal sense. So if we constantly tell children that they're no good, they'll never get a good job, that's it. They will believe it. I will never get a good job. Just to give you a personal example, I won't say who it is. Well, you wouldn't know them anyway, but this person has said to me in the past that I'm so lucky that I have a good job. Right. The person I'm talking about has never had a good job because she doesn't believe she will ever have a good job. When she was young, she was told that she was no good. She will never do anything with her life. And guess what? She hasn't done anything with her life. And I constantly try to tell her that I go through this process with her and help her to reframe that actually you can do something with your life. And I'm not lucky that I've just done something with it. Okay, so another statement that children can be affected by, are you stupid? And that the subconscious mind will take that as, I am stupid. Leave me alone. Now, parents saying that to a child, you don't want me. Eat all of your dinner and you will be a big boy or girl. Again, going back to the primary program of hunger and satiety. So we're born with that program to eat when we're hungry and to stop when we're full. And this is where parents reprogram children. We've all been through it. We've all done it because this is a societal thing that we all do the same thing. We have 3, sometimes 4 meals a day. And so what we do as children start to grow, as toddlers, 2, 3, 4 years old, we start to train them into eating 3 meals a day. And we train them to eat all of their meals, to clear their plate. And we tell them, you'll be a big boy, you'll be a big girl. And that is read as big is good, so I need to eat more. Is it any wonder that, in Western society, we have an obesity problem when everybody feels they have to clear their plate? Because part of that is that they don't want to waste anything, but the solution is don't put so much on your plate, simple as that, and stop when you're full. Another example of that is you must clean your plate if you want to play out or have an ice cream, for example. And that will be translated as I need to eat everything to be allowed to enjoy myself. So these are examples of how a child's subconscious mind read things very differently to what we mean. You are too loud. Now, this is actually a personal thing to me. When I was very young, when I was about 5, in what we my infant school, and we're on the lead up to Christmas, and we were being auditioned for the school Christmas choir, and we're all standing there in a row, in rows, singing our hearts out, and our awful teacher was cribbing along the rows, bent down, listening to everybody singing. And when she got to me, she said, "You're too loud," and she punched me in the chest and knocked me off my feet. From that day on, I couldn't sing. I just couldn't sing in front of anyone because I was too embarrassed that I would be far too loud. So my subconscious mind said, "You must stay quiet. You can't sing." And that had a pretty major impact on me, because when it came to my own children's and grandchildren's birthdays, I couldn't sing happy birthday to them. Now that might sound ridiculous, but actually that is the power of a negative program, and that's what it did to me. Thankfully, I've played in live bands before, play music, and at one point I was asked if I could do some harmonies. Guess what? I couldn't, but I got help for it, and I got reprogrammed, and now I have no problems with it at all. Another one: be a good boy or the policeman will come and take you away. Yes, I'm capable of bad things. And from a road safety point of view, Daddy is a good driver because he is fast. Quite often I hear parents, saying to the young children, "Oh, Dad's a good driver. Don't worry, everything will be all right. I'm a really good driver." And that can be translated as it's safe to drive fast. And there are other: Mum crosses the road when the red man is on. It's safe to cross when the red man is on. We have family in Spain, and we are shocked every time we visit. And when we go out for a walk, the parents will get to a pelican or whatever it's called in Spain, and the red man is on, and the parents say, "Come on, it's all right, there's nothing coming, let's cross." And me and my wife get infuriated because they're being programmed to cross when the red man is on, which can obviously be very dangerous as we get older. Now, children cannot distinguish between pretend and real. Here's some examples. Every Christmas, a big fat man in a red suit climbs down the chimney and brings us gifts. That's true, isn't it? It's true. Yep. If you put your tooth under your pillow and the tooth fairy will leave you money, that is also true. And the moon is made of cheese. Yeah, I used to believe that. All these statements are true. They are true in the eyes, in the mind, the subconscious mind of a child. So if we can convince children that these statements are true, then we can easily convince them that it's okay to do bad things or be involved in bad things. And we all know of some very bad adults, very bad people in the world who know this stuff and know how to manipulate children because they can't distinguish between pretend and real, and they can make children do very bad things. And that's really, really bad stuff. Taking that a bit further, we can easily convince them that it's okay to cross on a red man, to drive fast, to swear at other road users, to drink and drive, take drugs and drive without a seatbelt, and it's okay to use the phone whilst driving, and so on and so on. Now, I own a car that looks like it can go very fast. I never drive it very fast. And my two grandsons, who are both 7 now, almost 8, when they were 3 and 4, and I used to take them in the car with their proper seats, car seats, and all strapped in properly, they used to ask me to drive fast. And so obviously I said, no, I can't drive fast. But what I started doing was giving them programs. I used to say to them, it's okay to drive fast in the right setting. and that is a racetrack, but you mustn't drive fast when you're driving on the road because of these reasons. And I even took them to a go-kart track and showed them where they can drive fast and explained why that is much safer, because there are no people about, there are no obstacles, there are no trees, no lampposts. And then back out in the car to explain to them, this is why Grandad doesn't drive fast on these roads, because there are people about, there are cyclists, etc. They then started telling me when 30-mile-an-hour signs were coming up, Grandad, 30 sign, and they would check the speed up to make sure I wasn't driving too fast. So they, that's programming. I just hope that their fathers don't undo all of that work by saying things like, it's okay, Dad's a safe driver. So there's an example of how we can do things positively, do positive programming. So if we can program and convince children to do things that aren't good, we can convince them to do things the right way. And that's what we need to be doing in road safety. So the training on the course is really important, so that when we go into schools, we understand how children's minds are easily programmed, and we can then start teaching things in the right sense, and that we don't have any unintended consequences. So Aristotle, the great philosopher, said, give me a child until he's 7 and I'll give you the man. And that is actually very, very true. We mold our children until they're about 7, 8 years old. The problem we've got is that if children are deeply programmed in certain ways, it makes it very difficult to undo. So we have to work hard at that, and we have to convince them. We have to do, in our education, we have to do maintenance. We have to go back and repeat. We can't just tell them once that the moon is not made of cheese, because they won't believe it. We have to give them evidence, and we have to keep going back and saying it over and over again. So what does this mean for road safety education? I've got 4 questions that I want to pose to you, which I have done in other sessions, the same 4 questions to regional groups, and I've got some good responses. I just wonder what people think. So based on what you've learned today, should road safety practitioners at all levels have an understanding of the mind to avoid unintended consequences, i.e. giving the wrong message, and to ensure positive programming? Should parents have a basic understanding of the mind in terms of programming to enable them to provide their children with positive and meaningful messages? Should we be providing a parent road safety course that road safety practitioners at local level can deliver? And do we need to rewrite or supplement our road safety educational materials and resources with this information in mind? So thank you for listening today, and I'm very happy to take questions now. So Ed, if you wouldn't mind managing that, that would be very good of you.
Hi, Alan. Yeah, same principle as before. 2 ways in which you can pose a question or a comment via the chat function at the bottom of the screen, or simply by unmuting yourself and speaking up.
Okay.
Oh, here we go. We've got a question from June Howlett, who I will ask to unmute, and then.
Yep.
Can you hear me there?
Yeah. Hi, June.
Hello, Alan. That was really interesting, and especially the bit about the subconscious mind. And I was just wondering, with all these sort of programs, how long will it actually take to unlearn an automatic behavior or a belief?
Right. It depends on the process you're going through. So, for example, if someone came to me and said, I have a fear of spiders, so a learned fear, that can be undone in about 40 minutes. If you're looking, if you're working in a road safety sense, and you've got, say you've got a group of young drivers, and one of them has a strong belief that wearing a seatbelt is a hindrance, and we've heard that before, because they believe that in a crash, the fire service won't be able to get them out. I've heard this so many times.
Yeah.
It's a learned belief from someone else. That can take longer. But what we can do is we can use that constructivist approach I mentioned earlier, where we have debates. So you start a debate with all of the other drivers in that person's group. And what you'll find is that most of those young drivers know that it's much safer to wear a seatbelt. So you can use those other people to influence the person with the poor belief. It's cognitive dissonance, and it starts to move them, because as humans, we like to be part of a bigger group. And if you've got one that has this poor belief, and the other 99% who have this really good belief, that person will want to move across and be like everyone else. So it's about identifying those people with a poor belief and encourage them to think like the others. So there's a lot to say for these messages about most people do this, most people do that, and then you can gradually move people over. But in some cases it might happen just like that, or it might take 2, 3, 4 sessions with someone.
Yeah, that does answer it. And I think what you're saying about you're not the one trying to change their mind, almost you're getting their peers to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Peer pressure is a massive thing. Peer-to-peer learning is a huge thing, that peer influence. And all you've got to do is, it might sound easy, but you just got to get the rest of the group, find out what their opinion is. So, hey guys, what's your opinion? John here says that a seatbelt will hinder him in a crash. What do you think? And almost certainly the rest will say, well, I don't believe that at all. A seatbelt is a really good tool, and give them some evidence. And then once those people start to voice that opinion, then that single person will start to move across and start to think like they do, because they don't want to appear to be different.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, Alan. That's really useful.
Are there any others?
No others at the moment, no.
Okay. Right. So, well, if anyone wants to ask any questions, you might go away and in half an hour's time think, oh, maybe I should have asked that. You've got my phone number and my email address, and I'm very happy to take any subsequent questions and answer anything you've got. What I would say about this session I've done today, I've already mentioned that this mind session I've done today is far more than you will actually get on the course. But what we get on the course, what I give you on the course, is essential learning, and it can't be really used in isolation. So if you're going to send people on this course, this needs to be part of that sequence of events throughout the day. So they need to understand not just about the mind, they need to have the basic teaching skills, they need to know about learning approaches, because it's like a jigsaw, all fits together. You can't just use this mind information on its own, you have the other information as well. But if you look on the website, you can see when courses are being run. If you want to run this course in your own area and get a few students together, just contact Sally or Nick at the website, and they'll talk you through it to set up a course. Very happy to work with you. Okay, I think we'll end there. I don't think there's any more questions. And thank you very much for attending. I really hope you enjoyed it. I would like some feedback, actually, if you wouldn't mind anybody just emailing me and give me your feedback on the presentation today, whether it's good or bad. I'm very happy to listen to all of it. So thank you very much.